Go. Welcome, Nisha. Welcome to this interview. And I hope you found it easy to reach out over here. And I hope you are all set for this interview. I'm Kumar Gaurav. I'll be conducting your interview. I'm one of the panelists. Along with me, Prerna is here. So Prerna will also be interviewing you. So Prerna, if you want to take it ahead, you can go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Gaurav. Hi, Nisha. I'm Prerna. Today, let's get started to our interview. So, before we get into the actual Q&A, I would like to know more about yourself, your education and experience respected to the current interview. Yeah, please.
Would like to introduce myself. My name is Nisha Shah, and I have 12 plus years of experience in the IT industry. I have played various roles in the software development life cycle, that of a business analyst, scrum master, a web developer, and I love my profession. I really like IT. And my last project, my education has been master's in commerce. Along with that, I have done diploma courses in business analysis as well as quality assurance, where I did manual, and I did a bit of automation, Selenium WebDriver, and BDD.
Okay.
So a lot of my project as a business analyst, I have helped a little bit in the testing also, and the user acceptance testing. And my last project was with a lot of web-based applications, websites, and some of the banking projects. I have also worked in healthcare, travel, and tourism industry for most of the IT projects. And yeah, in the last project, we had followed Agile. And along with that, we did the Scrum framework with the Agile, where I was playing the Scrum Master for certain projects, and for certain, we also did in the waterfall methodology.
Okay. So as you've mentioned that you have worked in Agile as well as waterfall method, can you just elaborate some striking differences between these two, SDLCs?
The waterfall method, everything happens together. Like it's a long process, as in you start with the requirement gathering, then you plan it. Then after that, it goes in the development, testing, then you deploy it. And then whatever is the maintenance decided as per the project. So it's like if I have started a project, there is no customer involvement up till the end of the project. After the whole programming is done, then the testing team tests the whole thing together as a big package. Whereas when you're following Agile, there is constant customer stakeholder involvement in the project, and you are breaking up the project into small packets, and you're delivering it iteratively, like little and incrementally, which like if in a particular sprint, we have decided to complete 3 user stories. And at the end of it, it's a shippable software ready, which was decided for that sprint. And then we also take the reviews. Certain times the client wants certain changes. So it's easier to change when little has been developed against waterfall, where the whole thing is developed. And then you're changing the whole thing. It might become costly. A lot of man hours are needed. And sometimes certain things are then not possible in terms of waterfall. But in Agile, it's more customer collaboration and adaptivity to change.
Can you just tell what was the typical time duration for the Agile projects, for the sprint in your Agile projects?
In most of the Agile projects, one sprint, we took it for 2 weeks. But there were, I think, couple projects where one sprint had extended to 3 weeks.
Okay. So have you been a part of some Agile ceremonies? Can you please explain us about them? What was your involvement and what were these events or ceremonies are like in the project?
Yeah, the ceremonies was like the sprint planning. And in that, we had a product backlog, which basically had all the things which had to be done, the user stories and everything which had to be done for the product to be released. So, and then of course, the product owner would prioritize which should be done first, which would be done later along with the development team and the Scrum Master.
Mhm.
And based on the meeting, sprint planning meeting we did, which was basically to decide which part of the product backlog we would cover into the current sprint. Like we would take around 3 to 4 user stories, depending on everybody's contribution, because most of the user stories we could estimate following the invest thing. We could estimate how much time it would take along with the development team. And whatever we decide in that particular sprint, we start the sprint, we would have a daily stand-up meeting, which would normally be in the morning, which is around 15 to 20 minutes, where everybody was present, like each person said what they did yesterday, what they're going to do today, and if they faced any impediments in the project, and then the Scrum Master would try to solve it later. And then at the end of the whole sprint, we would have a sprint review. At that time, the entire part which was planned for that sprint had to be finished. It's like a shippable part of the software. And then we would do the testing there. And in the sprint review, even we would have the customer or the product owner is there. And of course, he has to approve what is done, which has to match the acceptance criteria. And once that is done, everybody would have their own reviews. By chance, most of the time it would get approved, but by chance, certain times we had one project where we faced that the whole concept was misunderstood, and what was actually produced was not what was expected. So in case that happened, then we had to redo because the product owner did not accept it, so we couldn't declare it as done.
Okay, so in such a scenario, as you said that your product was something different than what it was expected, wasn't it communicated, as you say that in Agile, you have been in contact or in communication with the customer. So what do you think caused that kind of situation? That your team actually understood at a time of review? Because as per Agile, what I understand, there is constant communication between the customer, the stakeholders, and overall teams. So yes, why was that caused? Can you please throw some light on that?
Yeah, in that project, what had happened is there was problem in what the customer was trying to say and what we had understood as a part of the user story. Now, this also happened because the customer, the management changed halfway through the project. So the person who was involved with us, the stakeholders, all of them, one of the stakeholder left the company and somebody replaced him. Now, the person who replaced him didn't somehow understand the whole process which was spoken to with the earlier person. So the problem was the miscommunication at their end, not what we had understood.
Communication gap was the identifiable issue which you had faced earlier, right?
Yeah, but because it was Agile, we had to somewhere still, accommodate that change.
Right.
And then, of course, after that, we went to this retrospective where we would discuss, what became very good in the sprint and what could be better next time. So when we are doing the product backlog grooming, we take those things into consideration. And of course, what was not approved by the customer, we had to rework on that. So it went back in the product grooming, backlog grooming, and then we would start the next sprint with a new product backlog and decide what all we'll complete.
Okay, and you have been part of all these ceremonies, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And they were all time boxed.
Oh, right. It's Agile, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gaurav, you can just start your questions.
Yeah, thank you, Prerna. So Nisha, tell me this thing. What do you mean by product backlog grooming?
The product backlog grooming is like when it is Agile, the product backlog is always evolving. It's never static. So after you finish a particular sprint and there is the review, a lot of times in the review time also the clients suddenly think they want something else or they want a little bit change. They want some addition to it. So even while one sprint is going on, the product owner is still in touch with the clients. And suddenly after like halfway through they come up with something. Oh, I think we should add this too. I think we should add this too. But once we start a particular sprint, we don't alter anything halfway through. So the product backlog has already changed a little bit in that process. And even after we do the review, sometimes everything is accepted as is. Sometimes they want a minor change in what was done. It would be very minor change, say a particular color or a font, just as an example, but you still need to change it. And then when you're doing the retrospective, you might realize that, oh, right now we had this part of the product backlog first, but now we groom it and maybe certain other things are more important now and they are shorter. So we put that in the front. And sometimes certain user stories need to be modified. They might be a little bit bigger, or certain user stories sometimes is trying to cover two aspects. So we try to shorten them as per through the journey. So in that way, we are grooming the product backlog to make it better for the next sprint. And then we again plan what we'll cover for the next sprint.
Okay, Nisha. So tell me that how do you decide that which user story is bigger, which user story is smaller? So what is the attribute to define that and measure that?
The velocity of the entire sprint team also we come to know with, like, if we've done already 2 or 3 sprints, that how many user stories we could cover in one sprint. So based on the last couple, you take the average. So you have that will give you the measurement of the velocity, that how much the team is capable of completing in that particular sprint. And of course, the development team also has a major role in deciding, along with the product owner and the scrum master, in deciding how much time the user stories would take. So like we know, if our sprint has been decided for 2 weeks, every sprint in the whole project will be 2 weeks each. So even the development team is able to measure that, yes, if the user story is very well defined, so that the estimable, that the estimated time to finish this user story is this much. Accordingly, we come to know whether it's big or small. So we try to finish smaller things first, and the very big things we leave it to the last and see if we can alter them to make it smaller.
So do you use any technique to identify the measurement or estimation?
We must have used it as a part of the Scrum team, but I am still not, to think of it right now, I am not able to. But I remember we used to follow one technique wherein if we feel this user story is big, it would be like that musical instrument which starts with small and it goes up big like that. So the smaller user stories we put in the front and the bigger ones at the back.
Brilliant. Can you recall, because 12 years you are into industry, it's a really great time, and I would be interested to know more about your current role. Like you have mentioned in your CV is as a BA and Scrum Master. So how you are fulfilling both these roles together, and is it really viable, and is it really do you think it is a great process to follow and pursue both the roles together? So would like more understanding behind this. So can you please elaborate on the current role,
No,
please?
I am not doing both the roles together in the same project. But with the company, we have different projects, right? So in certain projects, I have done the role of a business analyst, and in certain, I have done Scrum Master. But I'm not doing both together at any point in time.
Thank you for clarification. So being a Scrum Master, do you remember any kind of a technique, not even with the experience or with memory, but for the sake of knowing the name, if you remember that these techniques you have used? So
see, we have used SWOT analysis, which is strength, weakness, opportunity, threats. Then we've also used return on investment, ROI. A lot of times, like when we are trying to get the project for the customer to understand, if he's investing an X amount, what is going to be the return? Maybe you take a span of 1 year, 2 years, because you're investing money in it. So that's going to be, and for the strength opportunities, I remember we had a project where a client had, it was into a retail store, and then there was a competitor store which just started like in the same block. So then now he had to, of course, make himself a little bit better, so his sales is better. So whatever we suggested to him, we did have what is your strength over your competitor, what could be the weakness, could be that the competitor is new, his store is done up little bit in a latest fashionable manner. So then, we gave him ideas of how he could even do online store and have certain discount schemes, so he could attract more customers.
So Nisha,
And we
tell
also,
me, thank you Nisha for this answer. So tell me this thing, that as a part of Scrum Master in your recent organization, did you happen to identify any such impediment which you resolved and you found yourself very proud of that? And if you felt so, how did you deal with that, and what was the major problem which you resolved? So would love to know from you.
yeah, as a part in that role of the Scrum Master, there was a time in a project wherein we just had 3 more days before a particular release, and the development team, for whatever reasons, was not able to complete, didn't feel that they would complete every user story which was put in the sprint backlog in this sprint. And we just had 3 days remaining, so we had to decide, like, you had to leave some and continue with some. So in that case, I decided that let us finish the ones which are like of high priority, and the ones which is little low priority and low severity, let us carry it forward to the product backlog again and finish it later. So I had also discussed it. Of course, you have to be transparent with the stakeholders, product owners. So we discussed it out, and in a short frame of time, like, I was able to decide which is more priority, more severity, and it had to be shipped because we couldn't delay the sprint at all. And it had worked in at that point of time. And of course, I also made sure the stakeholder and the product owner is on the same note, that this is a problem we are facing and we still have to continue. And then we left 2 user stories and we carried it forward for the next sprint, and we finished what was most important. And at the end of the sprint, even the stakeholders were happy, product owner was happy, and the development team, all of us were happy. It was a win-win situation.
Super. So Prerna, you can just ask me to stop whenever you wish to, because I have more interesting questions for Nisha. So Nisha, tell me, have you ever used story pointing and capacity? So if you have ever used, then how do you define the story point as well as capacity? What do you mean by them?
By story points, see, when you're measuring the velocity of the team, like when I say story points, I would think, like, if this particular story is, like, how many story points you could finish in one sprint, say 3 or 4. So it depends on the size of the user story. By size, I would mean that how much time it is going to take to complete, like 2 days, 3 days, or 5 days for one, because our sprint is 2 weeks. So I think we would use it to measure the velocity, that X amount of story points we finished in this sprint, and X we finished in the second sprint. So when we average those, it comes to that. Now, I'm still not clearly remembering properly, but we have worked on it though.
Okay. And any idea on capacity, story point versus capacity? Or you want to pass it?
I would pass on it.
Thank you so much. Tell me one thing you have mentioned over here, something called ZEPHYR, Zypher. So can you just tell me about this? What is it exactly, and when did you
along with Jira, we had used Zephyr, where particularly for the bug when you're logging a particular bug. Like I have also been into these, sometimes I have done system integration testing, and when we had the user cases also mentioned in Jira, we also did the like when we were writing the test cases, it was done in Jira. And after that, when we were logging a particular bug, we did it through Jira Zephyr. And in that, we had to select the like name the bug. Then we had to write the entire description, the bug ID, a short summary, then the actual result, but the expected result had to be this, and then a screenshot of whatever. So all
So
that we did in Zephyr
yeah, so
along with Jira.
using Zephyr as a part of Jira, that's what I understand. So using
Yes.
Zephyr as a part of Jira, can you write test cases as well in Zephyr itself?
To my knowledge, we wrote the test cases in Jira, but when we were logging a bug, we use Zephyr, or I don't remember if from the beginning we used it, but we did use it. And I remember we had to even set a priority in that. We had the type of issue we had to write is a bug,
So
and the
was
priority of that
was
bug.
it the way you were telling, or was it other way around? Means you reported bug in Jira and wrote test cases into Zephyr. Was it something like that?
Now that you're asking me, I am little confused because this particular thing I had not used in my recent couple
Okay.
projects, but we have used the Jira Zephyr, so I know about that. But
All right.
if you're saying the other way around, it could be true. I am
No
not too
worries.
sure
Thank you.
about
Thank you so much. Over to you, Prerna, if you have more questions.
Yes. Nisha, your profile is quite interesting because you have mentioned that you have been a part of the testing team and you have been, actively worked as tester. So my question is, uh, what advantages you feel you have of your testing background when you work in Agile as a Scrum Master, as a team member? So how did your prior experience is helping you in the current role?
So what I understand as a business analyst also, like you have to monitor the bug tracking because you have always been involved with the client, I mean the stakeholders and the development team. So by chance the development team has come up with a bug, I think before we assign it to the development team, the testers have lodged a bug. It's the business analyst also who sees whether the bug is in scope of the current sprint or the current project or
Mhm.
no. And if they feel that the bug is a valid bug, then you would of course assign it to the respective development team. And we also, as a business analyst, I believe we also help in the user acceptance testing, wherein you would take only certain test cases or something, and sometimes if the end user is not free, you do it on their behalf or set up the environment for them. So in that sense, and sometimes even in the system integration testing, the business analyst is involved. Like my knowledge of bugs
Right,
and the
right.
bug life
Many times
cycle
they are, yeah.
would slightly be better, and it helped me even as a part of a business analyst.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Nisha. That's what I was looking at. So, being having the background of testing, I would say you are at a comparatively beneficial position to understand the test case as well. At times when
Yeah.
you are with client, that's what you're trying to say. So, when
Yes.
you are a part of this UAT process, or maybe in the initial documentation preparation, BRD, FSD preparation phase with the customer, so how do you manage a stakeholder or a particularly a customer who has been maybe adamant, or at times they are very demanding, particular requirements they're asking for, which are not within our purview or within our scope. So how do you deal with that? Because as customers, we are supposed to, cater to them. But in case if such extravagant or maybe something out of scope, which would, hurt your timelines or hinder your deliverables, how do you manage that in such scenario?
Yeah, we have come across such scenarios. So the end result has to be a win-win to what I would look at it. Like end of the project, we want everybody to be happy. So there are times where if halfway through the project, a lot of new requirements have come in, and certain things, of course, I would first check if it's adding value to the product. it might be that certain, if the end user or the customers want certain things, but it's not actually adding any value to the product,
Okay.
then I would try my best to, make the stakeholders understand that having this or not having this is not adding any value to your product. So let us take it, like, let us finish this whole product, and maybe we can take it as a next release. In this particular release, let us not take that. But yeah, if we feel it's adding value to the product and adding good value to the product, like, we would of course not want to disturb the entire sprint or anything, but we can tell the client, okay, we'll try to get 2 things from your end covered in the next sprint, and 2 things you take it for the next release, which does not seem to be affecting the usage of your product temporarily.
Okay.
And somehow through personal meetings, if it's in a group, we try. But sometimes if we feel there's too much conflict, if we are doing a group discussions, I would in person try to meet the client who's
So all
being
these
difficult and try to
decisions were
solve it.
taken by you individually, or you had to consult, or how it, because these are project level, decisions. So how did you manage that? Did you say upfront no, or you had to consult someone, or how it is?
No, it is in a group always. It's with the product owner. The product owner was the first voice for the customer. But in the meetings, as a business analyst, also, if it was a Scrum infrastructure, we did framework, we did go with the business owner, and we did help the business owner in writing his user stories or certain things with the client. But no, directly I couldn't have my own voice. It had to always be consulted with a team, even with the development team, because the development team is the one who's actually doing it. So it was a group decision, and of course then the product owner communicated with the stakeholders, or we had a project manager above us in certain projects.
Okay. So thank you so much, Nisha. I am done from my side. Gaurav, if you want to go ahead, you can, please.
I have a couple of questions. So Nisha, it was really interestingly to know that you had been the part of testing as well. How do you find the job as a business analyst? Whether it complements testing role or testing role complements business analyst role, if that is there, so what will be the position where you will be more inclined? Because I understand for which position you are trying to get into, but still I want to hear from you.
I would feel that my main scope is still as a business analyst or a Scrum Master. It's in the Agile framework, Scrum framework, but the software testing is something I have already learned. So it's complementing my role as a business analyst, because my understanding of test cases would be slightly better, even as the bugs, it would be slightly better. And in a lot of times, like, you're running short of time to finish the sprint. And in case the testing team needed some help, and for whatever reasons they were running short of time, and they needed some help, my understanding of test cases is good. So I would sometimes be of help in the testing activity if you're running short of time. And yeah, it just complements my role as a business analyst, but my key focus is still business analyst.
One last question from my end. You have mentioned about use cases. Could you please tell me the key elements of the use case when you are drafting in a use case diagram?
In the Agile framework user stories,
See,
as a customer, I want to. So as a, what is my role? Customer. I want to, like, what? That is, I want to book tickets online, so that I don't have to wait in the queue to book the ticket and then pay the cash.
Let me come back. And sorry, I'm interrupting you. Let me come back. So so understand this. I'm asking you about use case document. Okay. Are you talking about this is how you write use case? Are you sure?
The user stories.
Okay, you are talking about user story?
User stories in the Agile framework.
Okay, but I'm asking about use case document. Can you tell me few element of the use case document you have created? Because you have mentioned here in your resume that use case document. So that's why I was curious to know what are the key elements of use case document.
Key elements of a use case diagram.
All right. Nothing
I think
to
I
worry.
would,
Yeah,
I'm little.
that's fine. So do you have any question from us? Because I'm also done. So in case you have, you can ask.
No, not as of now, but I would definitely want a feedback, and I would improve next time. So I would appreciate your feedback, and I would really thank you all for your time, having invested your time in us on a holiday.
Nisha. Will definitely let you know. Just wait a moment.